Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of Their Lives Matter, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is wonderful Patti Ashley. And we're going to be talking about grief and loss, and we're going to be talking about love and children, and we're going to be talking about the inner child. There's a lot that we're going to cover here today, and this is going to be just the first show with her. She will be coming back with us again. Transforming grief and fear into love and grace. Beautiful words. But I know that if you are in grief and if you are in fear, which right now we're seeing so many people in that state of being, how do they step into love and grace? This is where they need to be in order to actually see what their next chapter is, or what the solutions are, or to be empowered to do anything. But that transforming into it can be very, very challenging. She says many of us are experiencing grief as we navigate the current world circumstances, but it doesn't have to paralyze us with fear or inaction. How we heal our wounds and return to love and grace as we emerge from the chaos, not only to survive, but to thrive. And, she's an international speaker, she's an author, she's a psychotherapist. We've got so much here to discuss, on grief and the passing. A lot of people have lost people, but they're not just lost people. They've lost jobs. They've lost their identity of who they are and everything else. And so there's so much loss in the world right now, but it doesn't have to be all about the loss. It can be about what do we gain from the loss. And when we choose to feed what is possible, what we learn from this, what else is out there, we're actually deciding to step into that love and grace because we're deciding to be a part of a solution instead of feeding a problem. Welcome to the show, Patti.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
A lot of loss at the present moment. We're not just talking about lives, but we're talking about jobs. We're talking about, feeling at a loss, not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. It's a very chaotic time. We're in the Celtic rune Haglas of disruption. But disruption and chaos sometimes can be very good because from it we can clean out and embrace a new path. What are you finding at the present moment with people in this state of beingness?
Well, absolutely, you're spot on with that. I think first word that came to me when you asked me that question was the idea of paradox.
Mm,
Paradox is two opposites that exist, seeming opposites that exist together. And I think, you've probably seen the memes about the Corona coaster, right? Where
yes.
people are up and then they're down and then they're up and they're down one day. They're like, I'm loving all this self-care and time. And then, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to go out of my mind.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we're riding this wave of paradox, and I'm an eternal optimist. And so my hope is, yes, we are in a paradigm shift where things are changing rapidly because there's been so much loss of what's familiar, what's been familiar to us. And so it's a collective grief and it's a letting go and it's a falling away of what's familiar and what we're used to doing and our lifestyles and our relationships. And, so many people have lost jobs and the tragic losses from COVID itself.
Hmm.
Even though that is really a small percentage of the loss that's going on, it's still obviously the reason we're in this
Yeah.
space of trying to social distance and have limitations on what we're used to doing, and it's causing our economy to collapse.
Hmm.
It's causing a lot of grief in a lot of different ways, and so again, in chaos theory, order follows chaos.
Hmm.
Um, so how we're going to get through this is a good question. I feel like the inner work that we're doing is the important part because, like the mystics, like Saint John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila, they went inward when there
Yeah.
was not a whole lot of control externally, Or even Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. You know, he was in a prison camp and he started trying to find where was his inner peace
Yeah.
and his inner sense of freedom. And I think that's what we're all searching for is what's inside, because we haven't done that well
No,
in the past.
no. We haven't done that well with even isolation. I think for so long, if we've been taught that more is more, you've got to be busy, hurry up and meditate and now get out there and, boom, boom, boom. And I think a lot of ways at the present moment by having the rug pulled from underneath us and just stop, take a breath. Do you need to be rushing around like this? Do you need to be busy every moment of the day? Are you allowing opportunities and possibilities to happen to you, or are you going right past them? So,
Mhm.
it's a shock to the system, to the people that are always on the go. But then that old cosmic 2x4 coming to kind of saying, oh, look, how else do I get your attention?
Exactly. Exactly, it is a cosmic two by four. It's got our attention for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And, and the way it's getting more and more extended time
Mm,
wise and so much uncertainty. I remember at the beginning when it started in March, a friend of mine who works at the hospital said, yeah, they're saying this is probably going to go on through June. And I thought, oh, good, June. I can make it. Oh, I thought forever, March, April, May, June. But oh, yay, there was a sense of relief. And then my birthday was in July, and I thought, oh, maybe by July. And now we're talking about the schools, and I'm in a lot of fear myself because I have my two daughters work in the school system. One's a
mm.
psychologist, and one's a teacher. And I think that the fear for me and for a lot of people around schools opening up again in the fall is terrifying. And so anyway, it's this long-term extended time of the unknown that really is the big 2x4. It's a
Yeah,
really, really big 2x4 because this means we have to adapt
yeah.
and look at some things that we probably wouldn't have looked at before.
I was given a saying, I say it every show, the universe is here to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to step up and change it up. And we're certainly being shaken and woken up. And, now they invite for us to step up. And the
Mhm.
thing is, we know there are problems out there. We can't do the finger pointing anymore because there's three pointing back at us. And it's like, if we don't like what's going on out there, how are we going to change it? We don't change it externally, we change it internally. You
Mhm.
find the solution within you and you become part of that solution. So
Mhm.
this pause or this complete stop at the present moment is an invite, not only to go in, but what could your participation be? What does the world need from you right now, and
Mhm.
that you have within you that you can bring out?
Mhm. Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I don't think we've really learned how to do that well.
Mm-mm, no.
We've lived in that, and like you were saying, this fast pace, hurry up and get somewhere, do
Yeah,
something. We're human doings rather than human beings in
right.
a lot of
Oh,
ways.
God, yes. Let's stop there for a second and really look at that terminology.
Mhm.
We're human doings. We've been told that we've got to do, do, do. You want it? Go out and get it. Fight for it, strive for it, claw for it, everything else. The human being is being at one with self, with nature, with the cosmos, with our faith. It is being about whole. How can we be whole if we're constantly,
Yeah.
pushing that, fifth gear or sixth gear and just going and driving our vehicle to the point of destruction?
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm going to say something that I don't really bring up much anymore because people don't understand um, what archetypes are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the archetype of Mary Magdalene, tomorrow's the feast of Mary Magdalene. And when I was writing my book, Living in the Shadow of the Two Good Mother Archetype, the Da Vinci Code came out.
Yes.
What I was researching for my book was, why is it that these women, these mothers, can never feel good enough about themselves, even though, psychologists are saying you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be good enough. But there was this phenomenon which still exists, and I still work with it quite a bit in my work, and I wrote my book about it, around I can't get it right. Everybody else has got it. I can't get it right.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm,
started researching just the history of mothering, and
mm.
looked at some of the feminist literature, and then the Da Vinci Code came out, and I thought, well, this is interesting because if Dan Brown is correct, and I've also now researched people who Dan Brown used in
Hmm.
his research to write the book, like Margaret Starbird, and a lot of the theologists who've really studied the story of Mary Magdalene, and none of us really know. But I thought, isn't it interesting that here is, if in fact what they're discovering is true, that Mary Magdalene was this woman, wise woman, teacher, married to Jesus, that we have this whole story for 2,000 plus years now about Jesus and all the men.
Right.
And we've
Hmm.
cut out the woman. And so, as an archetype, again, this is why a lot of people don't understand archetypes, because we also have this mistaken literalism. I work a lot with dreams and symbology and
Hmm.
archetype and metaphor in my work. And people, like, because we're human doings, we take things so literally. So we think
Yes.
that, the story about the woman and the man and it's all literal, but it's not. What it is, it's an archetype of how we've lost our
Hmm.
internal feminine. And
Hmm.
if you look at, you can even say it right brain, left brain in a sense,
Hmm.
where the right brain is our sensory, emotional, intuitive, creative part of the brain that develops first when
Hmm.
children are born. And we've neglected that completely in our
Yeah.
child rearing practices because our left brain is our logical, linear reasoning. And
Rules
so
and regulations.
mhm, we've gotten so out of balance
Yeah.
with that that's what's made us these human doings. And so
Yes.
for me, I think like I said, I don't mention Mary Magdalene a lot because people don't get it. But tomorrow is the feast day of Mary
Yep.
Magdalene, and the our Pope, the Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore, but I was raised Catholic. But the Pope declared that she was apostle, just like the men. That she
Hmm.
was as important as they were a few years ago. He declared that, which is major. So I just want to, again, it's archetypal, and it's more about giving ourselves permission to create that sense of wholeness, which is really integrating that right left brain, or as Carl Jung said, the anima, the animus, or the yin and the yang.
Hmm.
And I think we're so out of balance. We're
Yes.
so much of this patriarchal, masculine dominator, power, fear. That's what we're seeing. So we were seeing in the feminist movement, and now the Me Too movement,
Hmm.
and the racism, and
Hmm.
so much of that is destroying us, really.
Yeah.
And how do we get back to, and that's what Jesus and Mary Magdalene were trying to do. That was their story, was, hey, can we just love each other a little bit more here,
It's
and
it's corny when we look at it, isn't it? Because it's all about love. Love is all there is. The Beatles said it. Everybody else has said it. It is a common theme, and
yeah,
it's simple. And
yeah,
it's like, but there's something to do with our brain or our programming. It says, oh no, that's far too simple. There has to be something deeper. There has to be something more academic about this. And it's like everything is pushing us back to being connected to the
yes,
simplicity, to the right side of the brain, to the feeling, to the understanding, to the compassion. And
mhm,
the other side is fighting it. And
yeah,
it's like, let go. You've held on for
yeah,
so long
yeah,
that that there has been no room for anyone else. How many thousands of years has it taken for Magdalene to be acknowledged
mhm,
that she was there, a part of the group? And how many years has it taken for women to be acknowledged as equal? And of course, we're looking at Black lives, and we're looking at other lives, animal lives, even our planet. That
mhm.
balance is so essential for us to get back, because without that, we've thrown ourselves completely off kilter, and we can't continue like this, can we? We're spinning out of control.
Right, right. Right. And in Deepak, I've been listening a lot of Deepak Chopra lately. He's doing a lot of Facebook Lives, and he keeps throwing out the word, we're going to be extinct. We think
Yes.
it's impossible, but
Yes.
if we continue on this path,
Yes.
the planet will survive, but the humans won't, and
That's what Mama Earth keeps telling us.
it
Look at
is.
how I can thrive without you. This
Mhm.
is a warning. Next time it's the delete button.
Yeah, yeah. So you're right. Love is just this word that's thrown out
Mm.
that and so misunderstood
Oh,
because we think love is manipulation, really. If you do this
yes.
for me, then you love
Control.
me. And again, that left brain external power and control. But what is true love is letting go. True love
Yeah.
is compassion and
Mm-hmm.
empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never learned that well. It's just not been a story that's been told. And so
unless you were a hippie man and far out, right? Or belong to a commune. How much
Yeah.
do we see when people step into spirituality and step into the knowingness and step into this connection, that TV will make it into a commune where there clearly has to be either sex or murder or something devious about it,
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think, there's so much spiritual bypassing too. Everybody's looking for something outside themselves. Going to find
yes.
the shaman, going to find the teacher, going to find the method, going to find, and that's very cultish. And that's how people get wrapped up in a cult because
Mm.
they don't have the internal glue and the internal knowing. And so they're looking. I refer to the book, this children's book called Are You My Mother? This
Hmm.
little bird
Yes.
falls out of the nest, hatches while mom's out looking for food, and he's all alone, and he's asking, the tractor and the different animals, if are you my mother? Are you my mother? Are you my mother?
Yeah.
Because we're all looking for something outside of ourselves, and then he ended up being plopped back in the nest by this crane or something, and there she is, and he's
Right.
back, kind of like the Wizard of Oz too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like there's no place like home, but we don't have a lot of stories that help us find our inner self, and that's really what
No.
my work is about,
Mm.
is helping people
and
do.
and so needed. I was just watching a Netflix, or was it Crave? Can't remember, or HBO, one of those. And I'm sorry, I'm terrible on names, but it's about the woman who wrote Frankenstein.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I think I
and
saw it a while
really
ago.
highly recommend it, highly
Yeah.
recommend it. And it's all that she went through, which is what created Frankenstein. And father wouldn't speak to her, and loss of a child, and a whole load of things that she went through there. But it ended up being this masterpiece and kind of metaphoric
Mhm.
of, that sometimes just that simple love, a hug
Yeah.
is love.
Yeah.
But rejection of, at one part where the father actually is talking about the book and saying, and there is this creation, Frankenstein, and as he wakes up, all he wants to do is hug his creator, and the creator repels back at the
Mhm.
monster that he's created.
Mhm.
And and you're just in that little metaphor there, is that simple thing like touch and hug, but how much it feeds
Mhm.
the psyche, the soul, the heart, the spirit, and how much rejecting that of the damage that it can do.
Hmm. And if you look back, the book I just recently wrote about shame informed therapy, I was researched a lot of different theories, but for me, I've always been interested in Alice Miller's work,
Mm-hmm.
where she's researched 18th century child rearing textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And the old belief was spare the rod, spoil the child, of course, which
Right.
didn't mean to hit the sheep. It meant to create boundaries for the sheep in the Bible, but it was misinterpreted. Break the will of the child before they're old enough to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Children having temper tantrums are possessed by the devil,
Right.
and the devil needs to be beaten out of them.
Right.
And too much attention is harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't
And
know.
children should be seen and not heard.
And all
Right.
feel, don't feel, get over it.
Yes. Yep.
Be
Yep.
servants to the master, and all this has to happen before the child is old enough to remember. So what we know now, in the mid 20th century, we had child development research, and we realized, oh, children don't think the same way as adults. Children have different needs.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first 3 years, when that right brain again is developing and it's all sensory and nonverbal,
Yes.
what the child needs is to be physically held, like you were
Yes.
saying, and to
Yes.
feel that. But what did we teach? Let the baby cry. It's
Yeah.
good for their lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Put the baby on a schedule. Well, we've evolved now, and we know this is again why women don't feel good enough, because they're so friggin' confused
Yeah.
about what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. Yes.
But instinctually, what do we most moms want to do when our babies cry?
Pick them up and compose. I think a crying child, it depends what they're crying for. If they're having a temper tantrum and things like this, it's a different type of thing, because you don't want to endorse that. But then there's also understanding, why are they crying? And sometimes just that simple hold is
Mm,
just that all the language they need, all
yeah,
the food that they need. And then they calm down and they know, you're there for me.
yeah,
You're there for me. I'm not alone. I'm because fear is automatically kind of being there, isn't it? Is mum? Where's my mum?
right, right, right. And they feel safe, and that's
Yeah.
the key here that we're talking about, is they feel safe when they're being held. It's like
Yeah.
a baby has a reflex where if they startle. And so you'll see in the hospitals, the nurses know how to swaddle the
Right.
baby. They wrap them in a blanket so that their arms,
Mm.
don't do this
Mm.
when they're in a startle response, and they feel safe and they feel held. We don't talk a lot about this. This isn't something that, is normal conversation in our everyday world, but this to me is the key. This is where we start feeling emotionally safe right there well, even before we're born. But I can't emphasize enough how it's nonverbal.
Yeah.
We feel safe, we
Yeah.
feel loved, we feel held, and that creates the the development of these healthy neural pathways in the right brain. I
Right.
feel safe, I feel safe, I feel safe. If we don't get enough of that, if we're left to cry and we're raised in these old beliefs, which many families still do because they just don't have the other story or they can't quite get it. um,
Oh, it's so steeped in tradition that they wouldn't know how to walk away from it.
And they say, "Oh, I turned out all right,"
Yeah. Questionable. Yeah.
So those neural connections that are developing actually get pruned off. Like when
Mm.
prune a bush, we don't get the neural connections in our brain that say, "I'm safe, I'm lovable, I'm worthy of love and belonging." And so we develop all these left brain doing, back to the doing
Yeah.
part, all these left brain do, distract myself because it's all unconscious and it's all nonverbal.
Right.
and and it's even hard to explain, as I'm trying to give language to something that doesn't have any language here. So
But
and
it's
Bruce.
also a lot to do with not teaching empathy as a child. A child is going to be, from the moment they're born, it's about their survival, what they need. I'm wet, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I this and that. And then it's the navigating of them expressing what their need is. But if we don't teach them compassion, and we don't teach them empathy, then they don't develop it. I mean, some children just naturally have it, but some need to be shown it. Don't hit the cat. Don't pull the dog's tail.
Mhm,
Don't hit your sister over the head with that toy. These are all things that is about compassion and respect that we need to show, the navigation of a child.
mhm,
I believe, and I'd love to have your opinion on this, is that those that are not taught that um, end up being very narcissistic, and it's always about the injured child inside of them. It's always about the little child feeling that they're not heard, or they're not wanted, or it's all about me, me, me.
mhm.
And they don't know how to be compassionate or empathic to anybody else. What do you feel?
Absolutely. There's a healthy narcissism in children when it's
Mm-hmm.
all about me. And if they're seen and they're heard and they're validated and they're shown compassion and respect for other people, then they naturally develop out of that. It's all about
Mm.
me. And then it becomes more about a we and an us.
Yeah.
And that, but early in the first few years, there's a healthy part because that's how they create a sense of identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we overindulge or we punitively punish, there's
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things that we teach our kiddos. They get confused and then they start to make up other stories about how they're going to get their needs met. And it
Yeah.
definitely, narcissism is one way. There's many ways.
Yeah, manipulation, and yeah, playing one parent off against the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cunning. Can be very cunning.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bruce Lipton, who studied, well, um, he was worked in the field of epigenetics. It was his idea that we could actually change DNA, and people thought he was crazy.
Mm.
And now it's well proven that we can change our DNA. It used to be you're born with what you get, and
Mm-hmm.
too bad, so sad. But he's found that with environment
Mm.
and healthy these healthy emotional messages and
Reprogramming. Mm-hmm.
and that we actually can change our DNA.
Right.
But by the time we're 7, what's been happening in most cases, by the time we're 7, we're in a hypnotic trance because
Mm.
everything that we've learned growing up, we've absorbed like a sponge.
Right.
And it's unconscious and nonverbal, and it is who we are. And we don't necessarily go around thinking about these things.
Right. Do you find that that's so, people who have not been shown love and compassion, that have lived in a state of fear, and it might not always be their fear, it just could be the fear from the family, mum's always afraid, dad's always afraid, everybody's always afraid and angry, and they just absorb that and they don't know how to manage it. Do you find that a lot of people that as adults, they are just going to keep living that same programming because they know nothing else. It's also when you see a child that's been abused physically, mentally, emotionally, when they have their own families, that's what they're going to do to their own family, although they would never want to do that, but they don't know anything else because it was so instilled in them up until the age of 7.
Hmm. Absolutely, which is why I wrote the book Living in the Shadow of the Two Good Mother Archetype, which was based on my doctoral dissertation on women not feeling good enough.
Mm,
What I was trying to figure out is, Donald Winnicott coined the term "good enough mother,"
mm,
and so I was asking women, well, tell me times when you feel good enough, and no one could. And these were all, professional, 30-something, educated women who had at least one teen at home and another child. That was my demographics. And they're like, well, let's see. Oh, let's see. I got the cupcakes to the school party on time.
the doing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Doing. Mm,
There was this absence of feeling good enough. And so what I discovered in that is related to what you said is this unconscious repetition of
mm,
these patterns. And so what happened is we swung, like T. Barry Brazelton, who was a really well-known pediatrician who studied parent-infant relationships, said that when we try not to do the old punitive punishment that we were talking about, the 18th century, do as I say, not as I do,
mm,
we don't have a story for how to do it different. So we swing the opposite direction and we become these permissive parents
mm.
who let their kids, rule the roost. And he says, well, it's all about control. And so parents trying to control their kids and parents not wanting to control their kids, but then the kids control the parents
Right.
because it's this unconscious repetition. So the work is really making the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. So we're going to keep repeating the patterns, which is why these women couldn't feel good enough
Right.
because they're trying so hard to make sure they meet their kids' needs. But there's this idea of, picking one or the other. I don't want to be punitive, but then I go permissive.
Mm,
Kids don't feel safe then either.
right.
Kids need guidance and boundaries and structure, but they don't need to be punished and shamed in order to create that. And there's not a whole lot of models out
Right.
on how to do that. There's a lot of parenting practices, but my work really went into the deeper unconscious pieces because I taught parent ed for a pediatric group for 5 years, and parents kept thinking, and the more books I read, the worse I feel. Back to the trying to do it in their head, they're trying to do it
Mm,
as rather than
and be it.
be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have children in their 30s, and I was always like, oh, I wish I'd have been a better mother. I wish I'd done this. But I was in my own turmoil. I was in my own self-discovery. And, I did for my children, the best I could under, the state of mind that I was in. But one of the things that I refused to do was punishment over their action
Hmm.
that was consequence of I love you or I don't love you. I love you no matter what, but you're a stupid idiot for doing that, and I'm going to let you know that's got nothing to do with the fact
Yeah.
whether I love you or not love you. I love you. And I always looked at it as I'm a custodian of the children.
Hmm.
They're going to make mistakes. I always told them about the boundaries. Learn to find your boundaries, and if you're willing to push the boundaries, also be willing to pay for the consequences
Right.
and take, if you're going to take that risk, is it worth it? And that, if you fall,
Hmm.
as a mother, I have the prerogative to go wackaroo, so to speak. But at the same time, I'm also here to help you get back up.
Yeah.
That's the love part of it.
Yeah.
And, that's from where I came in. And my mum said to me, you've brought your children up the way you like to have been brought up, which I thought
Mhm.
was an interesting statement because we were shoved off to boarding school very young.
Okay.
But I think we can only do what we know to do,
Hmm.
either instinctively, which was very much me, or because I didn't want to repeat the same pattern the way I was brought up. She brought me up the way she understood, um, but at the same time, the books out there didn't make any sense to me. So it was just navigating instinctively through it and hoping I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I could be very grateful that my children are in their 30s and, that have, even if they've taken some wrong paths, have found their way back. And
Hmm.
that's the important thing. And we want to beat ourselves up because our kids maybe aren't the doctors and the lawyers and the this is and the that, and what, you haven't got your PhD yet, and you're not this and you're not that, and it's like comparison, 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 comparison. And it's like, no, I am imperfectly unique as Sara, and I do not have to compare myself with anyone else. But then this is the, you have to, everybody else is doing it that way, so you must do it that way. And that just throws us off into another tailspin, doesn't it?
But that's the doing again.
Yeah.
And, and I think that breaks my heart because, even in preschool now, the goal is to get to the Ivy League school. And
I
maybe
know.
that's part of this paradigm shift that's going to
Oh,
happen, with this, all that's going on with education right now. I think there's many more important things than, ABCs and one, two, threes in preschool. Children need to learn how to get along socially. They need to understand their emotions. And, I've consulted with preschools and helped them create more social emotional curriculums, and it's still so foreign from what we're doing. We're
I
so
know.
focused on the doing, the ABCs and one, two, threes. When
And then measuring the person up. Oh, you don't know your ABCs. You must be stupid.
and the testing and the
Yes. Ah,
yeah.
I
So
failed at every one of those.
yeah, we have a lot of cleanup to do on how we
Oh,
raise
yeah.
healthy beings,
Yes.
and
Yes.
my children are in the 30s as well, and I have three grandchildren, and you
Lucky you.
know, yeah, and I haven't seen them because of this.
Ah,
It's
yeah.
they don't live here. So, but we see each other on this way.
It's not the
Anyway,
same though. You want to hug, right? You want to
I
put your arms around
wanna.
and go.
I do. I'm so craving that. Um,
I still do that to my kids, much to their own embarrassment.
I know. I know. And so my children are amazing human beings,
Mm,
and it's wonderful to watch.
yeah.
I don't think I certainly didn't do anything right. I certainly made a lot of mistakes, and I
Hmm.
certainly can beat myself up a lot because I wanted to be the perfect mother too. That's why I researched it. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as perfect.
No.
We're all
By whose expectation, though? Who laid out this perfect path?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it goes back to the suppression of the feminine. Women have
Hmm.
been told that they have to be a certain way, but then by golly, you can have freedom and
Mm.
in your own sense of self. Yeah.
And also very much that women have to raise their children to be of service to men,
Yeah.
or in whatever way that the man comes first. Leave it, little woman, leave it up to the man to decide. I got that in my house, almost burnt down, and I'm dealing with the insurance people, and my husband, quite honestly, shut off. He just couldn't cope with it. And I was there with the builders and there with everything else, and literally the insurance guy, don't worry, dear, I'll just deal with your husband. And my husband wasn't anywhere, he was gone. Like he didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Just go and rebuild it. And that,
Yeah.
condescending.
But
Oh my God.
women couldn't even buy a house on their own until 1970. I mean, we think like that was only 50 years ago.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
we don't realize that because it's so different now. I think especially the young girls today, they
Hmm.
need to be reminded of that.
Yes.
And I also think that the feminist movement was a way for women to get their power back, but they did it in a masculine
I know.
world. And
Yes.
that breaks my heart too, because then
Yes.
it's like homemaking, tending the hearth, raising the children gets shoved over here as something that we get done
Because you
while
can't do anything else.
while we're working,
Yeah.
instead of going, well, how are ways that I can feel my power in the world and be a whole woman and work outside the home and inside the home, but this whole homemaking piece doesn't that's the part that got suppressed. And I think that's the part that's so hard for women today, is to realize that there are many, many full-time jobs that women do as mothers that you can't do and work full-time outside the home unless you have the resources to pay
Yeah.
housekeepers and nannies, or
Yes.
your husband is really involved, or you've got family. Somebody's got to share that load.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
talk about that much. We talked about
No.
how, hard it was to do it all, but we didn't, never really talked about how we can feel powerful as women knowing that that work is powerful work.
Right.
And we've
Yeah.
kind of like squished it like, oh, it's
Oh,
just.
I mean, I was, I tried opening up a couple of businesses. Sorry, I'm really hot here today. Um, and it would always be, oh, the children are suffering. And so, give them up and go back home. And I was a stay-at-home mom. And I consider that definitely a gift for me because I was also kind of a neighborhood mom and kids used to come stay with me, a safe house and all of that. I took motherhood very seriously. For me, this was my career. And, he once kind of made a comment, about the luxury of just being able to stay home and do soap opera, watch soap operas all day. And I wrote him a bill, housework, how much you would pay to do my job, nanny, cook, driver, this and that, even the sex goddess, and gave him the bill and said, quite honestly, you can't afford me.
That's perfect. Perfect. It's so true. I met a woman who runs the Motherhood Museum. She was in New York for many years and now she moved down to Florida. And I went down to her museum and the whole room is covered in photographs of different professions that and how much each profession makes and all of those women do as
Yeah,
mothers.
yeah.
And I really think that that's the important part is being able to acknowledge that this is really hard work. But it
Yes.
doesn't mean we can't work outside of the home.
No.
It means that we have to really hold that motherhood as a big job and
It
important.
is a big job. I'm very often thankless, until the kids have kids. And then they suddenly look at you in a different way. And I am very lucky that my own kids have come to me and go, look, Mum, if it hadn't been from you, I would have gone and taken that road. But it was your face and your love that
Mhm.
had me come back. And that, for me is like, oh, I did something right. And I wasn't anywhere near him at the time, but it was purely my love for him. I can't do this to my mother. She loves me too much, and
Mhm.
took a different road. And that is, I get teased because I'm always wanting to kiss and hug them at 6 foot. This, that's who I am. I have no grandkids yet, so until they give me grandkids, they get smooches,
You're gonna
right?
love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I got grandpuppies, grandcats, and a grand restaurant, but no grandkids yet. They're all taking their time. I say, hurry up before I get too old and you're pushing us both around in a chair. But I think the thing is respect what the woman has to contribute. If she wants to stay home and raise the children, understand that is a profession.
Mhm.
And you don't pay her for it, but you should. It should be allocated that there is money that is hers, unquestionably, to do what she wants to do with it. If
Mhm.
she wants to educate herself while staying at home, be behind her, let her do that. If she wants to start a business from home, great. I mean, what is this? It's always got to be about the men's career,
Yeah.
or you've got to have a career or be a mother, but you can't do both.
Right.
Who said?
And look at what's going on now. Well, one, we have an economy that doesn't allow for a lot of women to choose to stay home, which
Right.
that breaks my heart.
Yes.
Like my two daughters who are having to go back into the school system
Yeah.
and be, around, I saw there was I think Michigan is requiring parents to sign a death waiver that if your child dies from COVID in school,
Ridiculous.
they won't be held responsible.
Ridiculous.
So we're putting, not only can women not afford to stay home, now we have what's going on with the schools. And there was a great article the New York Times did not too long ago about women can't stay home and work anymore because they're actually having to take care of the kids and homeschool
Yeah.
while the kids are home.
Yeah.
And there's no childcare while they work if they're working on Zoom or whatever.
Right.
They can't do it, so it's a whole different
Hmm.
can't do it all. Now it's the kids and work are all in the home and there's no way you can see it actually more clearly, all that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
There's like
Yes.
all these responsibilities of parenting that we've kind of pushed on our very underpaid and often uneducated child preschool teachers,
Yeah.
or we've shoveled them off to school because we've got to get to work, and
Or
then
nannies or this and that. Yeah. Hmm.
um, and so now, I mean, the reality is, yes, in an ideal world, if we could feel valued as women and mothers and be able to choose working outside of the home. And we, women don't make as much as men even now, on the dollar. We're still underpaid. So we have a long way to go. We've made some progress. We have a long way to go. But I don't think that the young girls today realize that this has only been, it was exactly 100 years ago that we got the right to vote, right?
Right. And how long did that take before, it's rather like the Black Lives Matter. They
Yeah.
supposedly had their freedom, but they're still segregated in
Yeah.
so many ways. And women are too. I mean, the Me Too movement, definitely an excellent movement where we're at least looking at, misogyny and sexual abuse and but what we're still fighting for is this is the vessel I'm in. It's female. You're a male vessel. If I could do the same job as you, why am I not paid the same?
Right.
Why can you not respect me for what my contribution is? And you have to look at me either as a sexual object or as a lesser object because I am female. And this is, I woke up one day, literally in the middle of the night, and thought, we can't bash the men.
Hmm.
We have to educate them. Right?
Definitely.
And it's because even our sons are being brought up by the fathers that this is acceptable.
Yeah.
And my son's surrounded by two sisters and his girlfriend, and so and his mother. So for him, it's like, try that. It ain't going to work, right? And I think if we educate the men, educate the boys, we're going to see that difference in the way that they treat people. But they're going to treat women the way they've been brought up and way society has dictated. So the system is broken on the home front, in the workforce, in society as a whole, and that system needs to be scratched and redone.
Such a good point. I think the men are having even a harder time understanding because men and women are wired very differently. And I hate to
Yeah.
be gender specific, but let's face it. We have wombs, men have penises.
Yes.
We're just biologically
That's
different.
yeah.
And I know with all the transgender and all the gender identity pieces now, I think part of that is to wake us up that
Yeah.
even though we're wired differently or biologically different, we're all searching for the sense of wholeness of this inner masculine and feminine. And
Yeah.
in psychology, they call it the inner marriage. But it's been so out of balance with so much of the strong male
Yeah.
patriarchal power and control that the feminine has been, kind of suppressed and misunderstood because it is mysterious. It is that right brain nonverbal piece. And in the Native American traditions, the medicine woman actually teaches the medicine man
Mm-hmm.
because we are wired a little bit differently. Women tend to, and again, I hate to stereotype men and women because it's not necessarily gender.
It's just, but it's also the way we're made up, right? The
Women
DNA.
tend,
Yeah.
like Mary Magdalene. I believe
Yes.
Mary Magdalene taught Jesus,
Yes.
but yet she was written off as a whore and she was a
Of course
terrible.
she was. Of course she was. Yeah.
And the Blessed Mother never had sex.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so we're in this place of the men really need the women to teach them. I joined a few years ago, a woman moved to Boulder and she started the Women's Network and she wanted me to be on the board of directors and we were doing focus groups. And I said, you know what? I've been in women's groups now for 20 some years and we're not going to do anything until we can bring in the men.
Right.
We have to educate men and again, we're talking about things that don't have a lot of language. So we look at the Me Too movement and all the protests with the racism, and people are saying we're fighting for something that we've asked for
Yeah.
years, but we've given lip service to, and nobody's really paying attention to how we can create a new paradigm
Right.
or
Yes.
create a real shift. We're just going through the motions of pretending, and that's why so many people are saying, I'm not racist, but you are racist. And,
Mhm.
what they're really saying is we really aren't listening to the core
Right.
essence of our true self, which again is back to love, which,
Right.
like we said earlier,
Yeah.
seems easy.
Yeah. Everything
Why
goes
can't,
back to
why
love.
can't we just do that? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Why can't we do that in the first place? We're born of love mostly. We're raised with love, hopefully. And everything that we do in kindness and caring is an act of love.
Yeah.
And whatever faith you're in, if you have a God that doesn't rule by love,
Hmm.
love and forgiveness, then I'm sorry, I don't want to be a part of that God, because God is love. It's
Right.
not about judgment and hell and fire and persecution
Right.
or conditions. It's about unconditional love. And we are a part of that. We are DNA part of that makeup there. And when we step into that love of self,
Yeah.
when then that is when we start becoming abundant, and that abundance will, cup will runneth over. And the more love we share of self, the more love we have to give, and the more that it's received and the more that it grows. I have a saying right now that actionism is the new activism. Activism is about shouting out about it.
Mm.
Actionism is doing something about it. And we're at that stage, and I was stepping up and going, what can we contribute? What can we do? And just turning around and recognizing someone for who they are,
Yeah.
not why they are. What is their makeup? What is their background? Who they are. I
Right.
wrote an article, I wish for a colorless world, and immediately attacked by some people about, well, you don't care about the skin and this and that. And I honor that the skin you're in is your heritage. It's
Mm-hmm.
your ethnicity of your culture, and I embrace that culture. But I actually see you from your heart and soul, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what vessel you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would love to see it called is Black Rights Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Because what are we talking about? We're talking about their rights as a
Yes.
human being to have equality, as we are with women, as we are even with the planet, as we are with the education, as we are with the health system. We're looking for that equality. What is the equality? Balance.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
are so out of balance right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And that cosmic 2x4 has come along and flattened us all around the world. And there's chaos and there's disruption and there's anger. But out of that also comes creativity. It also comes inspiration. It also comes clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inviting us to change the systems. So if you don't like what's going on out there, what are you going to do about it? We don't want the rant and rave. We
Right.
would like you to step into that love within you, ignite it, and start sharing it.
Right. Right. And yeah, the question, what would love do, is one I ask myself. And again, I do believe and I keep going back to Mary Magdalene, but,
Mm,
I believe that's what they were here to teach. They would like, love your neighbor as yourself. The
yes.
kingdom of God is within. If you
Yes.
want to know about the kingdom of God, look to the children.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus would say, if nobody wants to hear what I have to say, I brush the dirt from my feet and I walk on.
Yeah.
Very different from our Christians today who profess the opposite of a
Mm,
lot of what Jesus
yeah.
actually taught.
Yes.
So, again, how we've cut off the true meaning of what is love. Love is definitely compassion for
Mm,
every sentient being, and um, that means treating them with respect and kindness, and as well as ourselves.
yeah.
And isn't it interesting how we haven't done that well for quite a long time?
No, I mean, every week I do a show of myself, just Sarah's view of life, and I just share a perspective. And sometimes I have, I'm going to talk about this week. And sometimes I may write it. Sometimes I just push the button and speak it. And I pushed the button this week, and I was a bit of a kind of a dizzy, getting into the groove. And I realized I need a nothingness day.
Yeah.
I need a day where there's nothing expected of me. I haven't got a schedule. Nobody's demanding anything of me. I can just sleep all day or go and do what I want. And I don't even have to dictate what it is I want, just allow whatever that is, because I'm feeling out of balance and I'm feeling stretched out and I need a nothingness day.
Yeah.
And I think we all need sometimes to step into nothingness, the abyss, blind, deaf, and dumb in order to hear, see, and feel, because we're so busy controlling everything
Yeah.
that we don't allow.
One of my favorite quotes that was on a card given to me in seventh grade by Sister Claire, who was an amazing human being. We find ourselves in the quiet moments when the earth pauses and we are still. And I keep that in my heart all the time, and remember that what you just said is so important. Like Sunday, well, there's no more Sundays anymore.
No.
People are running to Costco and running
Mm.
errands and doing things. There's no rest
Preparing for the
anymore.
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in nature, we learn so much in nature about
Yeah.
back to the being versus the
Yeah.
doing. The trees aren't running around trying to make sure that they get fruit. They're just being. They're
Yeah.
in their essence, and nature happens. And yeah, we all can learn that, but we get in our fear, and that gets the busy, busy,
Yeah.
do, 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 and that's what's created, a lot of destruction on the planet.
If we follow the kind of the nature cycle of
Mhm.
4 seasons, I did a wonderful show on the menstrual cycle, and she has come up with the 4 seasons to do with our menstrual cycle. Of each week, you're in a state of particular chemistry beingness, and if your family knows where you're at, they know this isn't the week to ask her to do something,
Right,
right? This
right.
is the week she's creative. Hey, quickly, pile on, she'll do anything, right? But it's understanding that this is the chemistry of our bodies. And
Hmm.
when we tap into our seasons within our bodies, our seasons within our minds, our seasons within what we need, we will actually understand better and take this pressure off ourselves to be, quote, perfect. I think being beautifully imperfect is what makes you so unique.
Hmm.
And the moment you stop striving for perfection, the more you understand life could be pretty perfect just as it is.
Yeah, and that's another example of the feminine and how women are wired different. We have these cycles
Mm-hmm.
where, just like the moon, oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
women's cycles are with the moon, and the tide is
Yes.
controlled by the moon, and there's a rhythm. And that
Mm-hmm.
was one thing. It's interesting because, I love, like, we're in a new moon right now, and I love new moons because,
Mm-hmm.
they say they're all about, some starting new things, and full moons are things have come to fruition. And so I always like to pause on new and full moons and just reflect on that. What's new in a new moon and what's come to fruition for me in a full moon. But we have these cycles. And in this pandemic, it's even more profound to me when we're in so much uncertainty and so much change. One thing I know for sure is the rhythm of the moon
Ain't
isn't
going to
changing,
change.
nor the sun,
No,
nor the seasons.
no,
Well, we're changing the
no, we're
climate.
changing those. Yes, yes, yeah, we're
But
definitely but
which again is back to how human beings not honoring those cycles can
yes.
really wreak havoc on, the natural order and the rhythm. It's a rhythm.
Everything to do in life with a rhythm. Everything is to do with tone. We are particles of the universe that makes us up. We are the same energy of the universe, just being encapsulated in a DNA tissue. But our bodies need a rhythm. Our minds need a rhythm. Our souls need a rhythm. The planet works on the rhythm. And when you go with the flow and you tap into that energy, you're in sync with the energy around you. And you no longer kind of live by this itinerary of got to do. And you just simply enjoy being who you are and understand being who you are is not, not a posting I put up there. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm somebody's strong cup of black coffee, right? I don't have to be
Yeah,
everybody's cup of tea. It's
yeah,
all right.
right.
I'm me. I'm Sara, as quirky as I am. And you
Hmm.
can take me or leave me. I am not going to be offended.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of work to get to that place.
Oh, yes. Yes. A willingness to, right?
Yeah, because there is so much pressure to be and do things a
Yeah.
certain way, and again, it becomes all unconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and we're in a trance, and we have to
Mm-hmm.
break the spell, so to speak, and that's why my work is authenticity architects, because I talk about reconstructing the authentic self. Let's remember those parts of ourselves that maybe we, shut down because we were told to be or do things a certain way. And where is this authentic self? And I love the word architect. I was watching, there's a TV show about these homes, these really fancy homes.
From around the world?
Yeah, have you
Yes, I
seen
know.
it?
It's amazing, isn't it?
I don't remember the name of it, but I was fascinated by architecture, just, listening to the stories of how the architects decided how they wanted to create these spectacular homes and why and what was behind it, what they wanted. Well, it's the same thing with the architect of self, and that's what I help people
Yeah.
do is, well, what do you really want?
What do you
What do
want
you
to build for yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, what's your authentic self? So it's a hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell would say, of allowing yourself to really go into
Yeah.
the depths, to really meet those parts of yourself that maybe you've hidden or
Hmm.
you know.
We're never allowed to even discover. I mean, this is why this network is called self-discovery. Aren't we always in discovery of self? And even when you found yourself at a certain level, you go, this is great. I really like who I am right now. And then something else comes along that's going to challenge you.
Mhm.
And, you know, your old self would have gone, no, panic, chaos, etc. And your new self goes, okay, all right, roll up the sleeves. Let's use
Yeah.
the tools and the intuition that I have and face this, because we sell ourselves short all the time on who we are and what we're capable of. And if we step into wonderment and self-discovery, can I do this? Well, I don't know. Let's give it a try.
Yeah.
Let's try it. And then when you do succeed in doing it, you go, you know, I didn't know I could do that. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Right? And it's okay to have that pride of your achievements, because for so long we've been told what is an achievement,
Mm-hmm.
and how important that achievement is. But when we have our own personal achievements, it's like, you know, I've done this because of me, of who I am, why I am. Then it's like I'm at one with self.
Mhm. And, you know, as Eckhart Tolle talks about in The Power of Now, it's learning how to be really present in the moment, because
Yeah.
really that's all we got right now.
Yes. The gift
And
of the present is in the now. Yeah.
we don't know what's going to
Mm.
happen in the future with this pandemic and how it's all going to play out. And we're so trying to figure it out, you know. But right now, it's that radical acceptance and being, how do we be in the present moment and find safety in the moment? I
Mm-hmm.
suggest my clients, and I do it myself sometimes when I'm in, like, oh my gosh, this feels too stressful,
Mm-hmm.
in the Corona coaster.
Yes.
You know,
I like
find
that.
five things that are going on right now that are comfortable and safe, and it helps your body come back into
Right.
present moment safety. Because even though we're in a lot of stress, we can usually find five things. Usually, like maybe the chair I'm sitting on is soft, or my cat is sleeping in the chair, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have some beautiful roses in the vase, or you know, I've got some food cooking in the crock pot, and then it's like, oh. Okay. And it kind of, we want to get our body into feeling body safety in the moment.
Yes.
That's all we got right now. And you know, as Eckhart Tolle and the other teachers of present moment mindfulness is, you know, the point of power is in the present moment. And the more, that's how we really rewire those neural networks that say I'm safe and I'm lovable,
Yeah.
is by being really present in the moment. That's hard for a lot of people to do. Because
Yes.
again, we're busy doing, trying to.
Right, exactly. And but being present in the moment and allowing is, you know, not only in your nothingness. You know, it's like traveling up into the universe in space. You're in everything and nothingness all at once.
Mhm.
Right? Everything. You know, for me, it's always about the soul knowledge
Mhm.
that, you know, comes through the soul as the wisdom. It resonates with the heart and truth, and it goes to the spirit into action, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And I call that the knowingness. And if we're in our moment, if we're in our stillness, if we're in our nothingness, we will then open up the channels of knowledge that we need to know right now, which is the answer that we need for the next moment.
Absolutely. And I think most people are terrified of nothing.
Yeah.
And do you ever see the movie The Neverending Story?
Yes, one of my favorites. Seen it many times. Yes.
In search of the nothing. I've got to find
Yes.
the nothing.
Yeah. 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 And we are scared of them. We will always want an explanation.
Hmm.
And I think when you let go of the explanation, there is an understanding of certain things. Because by understanding how something works, you know how to use it better. But you know, the thing about the knowingness is you do not need to verify, validate, justify. It just simply it is. And to step into it is hard for a lot of people. But when you get there, that is your clarity. You don't need any more than that.
Hmm. Well, and it reminds me of the spiritual teaching I am. You know, I am
Mm-hmm.
that I am is really about I am. It's about present moment. It's
Yes.
about I am that I am. It's not about some God outside. It's about I am is a meditation, is a mindfulness, is a presence of being me. I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. And the thing is when we look at life, um, we're all here to find our meaningful purpose. We're all here for a reason. We're all gifted with particular tools. So, what instrument are you? How well have you learned to play it? And where is your orchestra? Because when you join that orchestra in sync with
Yeah.
the other players, you're now creating a symphony that really resonates out
Yeah.
in healing and in invitation.
Yeah.
But we've got to stop looking at everybody else being our healers.
Right.
Instead of looking at how can I use their skills and tools to heal myself, because the responsibility always comes back on us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Again, yeah, permission to feel our feelings and permission to really explore who I am
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily base it on what everyone else.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. So many people do that. Well, I can't do that because so and so will feel this or think this or
yeah,
say this or do that. Well, what do you want?
yeah,
And is it kind and is it
yes.
respectful?
Mm.
If it's
Mm.
kind and respectful and you feel that that is true for you, to me, I'd go with that.
Yeah. And if you have got someone, one of the hard things with this is that you are going to have to leave people behind because they're not ready to move forward. They're
Right.
not ready for this journey. And they will come out and attack you because they're now feeling an abandonment. Do not take it personally. I like the 4 codes of,
Right.
do your very best. Don't take things so personally. Speak from authenticity. And what's the other one?
Don't take anything personal. Did you say that one?
Yes.
Don't take anything personal. Be impeccable with your word. It's so funny. I always have a hard time.
I
There's
know I
4.
live by these codes and I always forget them when I have to articulate them. And I think it's just do your very best based on what you feel is your best,
Oh yeah, do your
right?
best. Do your best. Yeah.
And the thing is that you're not responsible for how that person feels.
Hmm.
And you can just send them love and hope that they are willing to take their own journey. But
Yeah.
you are 100% responsible for how you feel about your own journey.
Right.
We have to take ownership. Do you have any of your books in front of you that you can show us?
Oh, that's so funny because I can get them. They're right here.
Yes, no,
Uh,
fine. We're going to wait for you to get them. So for
okay.
the people watching the video, they can see them.
Okay. And you'll have to see my sweatpants from the bottom
Yeah,
up.
well, that's COVID. You have no idea what I'm wearing on the bottom here.
Okay. Yeah, I have. This is the latest one. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
for therapist. It looks like it's backwards on the screen. It's shame-informed therapy, treatment strategies for overcoming core shame and reconstructing the authentic self. So it's a workbook for therapists to use with their clients, but people can use it individually too. My next book, hopefully, is going to be a workbook for just anyone to use
Mm-hmm.
themselves. Um, this, Letters to Freedom, is a memoir of grief. My fiance died of a sudden heart attack, the same way my father died when I was 11. So I wrote the story in hopes it would help people with grief. And then this is the book we've talked a lot about,
Yeah.
Living in the Shadow of the Too Good Mother Archetype. And that's based on my doctoral research of women not feeling good enough. So those are my three books, and there's a lot more in me. So yet to come.
Right. Yes. And I respect people that can write them. Everybody's been wanting a book from me for ages, but I
Yeah,
don't
you're
have
almost there. I know. I know. It is.
time.
It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And you really, yeah, it's a dedicated chunk of your life for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but my website is pattyashley.com, Patty
Yeah.
with an
Can you
I.
spell the Patti Ashley for people who are listening?
PattiAshley. And so links to the Amazon, to the books. Also, I have some courses that I'm doing. One is Go In, Not Out, which is free
Hmm.
on my learning platform. But it relates to what we were talking about doing our inner work. Um, and what else is on my website? Links if you want to do some authenticity architect coaching with me online.
Mm.
A lot of the videos and audios that I've done, and yeah, lots on my website.
So a lot of resources there. Do you have, a sign up if people want to just kind of have a chat with you to see if there is a synergy?
I suggest no. Because what's happened when I've offered that in the past is it's hard to keep it at 10 minutes. And so I
Yes.
would suggest people sign up for your 50-minute session and when we really have some time to decide if it's a good fit or not.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it's also kind of, by listening to these shows and by looking at your books and looking at your site, if you haven't got, the indication whether this person is for you or not, you're not going to get it in any other way.
exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just so busy. I stopped doing that a while ago because of
Yeah.
that. The
No,
10
something has to give. That's the adjustment, right? You have to go with what really works and let go of what doesn't.
Right.
And even though, oh, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, well, what works for you,
Yeah.
what helps you be the best of what you do,
Yeah.
best being that you are in what you do
Yeah.
is where it should be. And if something else is taking time away from that, then no, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. So PattiAshley.com. LinkedIn, Facebook, are you all under that name or under a different name?
Patty Ashley everywhere.
Right.
I do a Facebook Live too on Friday at 11 on my Dr. Patti Ashley page,
Excellent.
my Facebook page. So yeah, you can find me
Excellent.
just about everywhere just by Googling my name.
Right. Exactly. And so much to learn there. And we were talking about the grief and this and that, and of course it went into kind of the women archetype and the mothers and everything else. And I think for so many people, and I know for myself on my own self journey, that it was an incubation of myself to be reborn and giving birth to myself, and then kind of navigating this new person, and what I wanted around me and what I don't want around me, and the wonderment, but oh, I can't go there. This is not who I am now. Who I am now prefers to go with that wind over there. So it's, don't be afraid to kind of take the journey or to birth yourself, a new way, because then it's your choice, and you're going with the flow, and you're going from the inside out, and you'll be so much more beneficial to others as well as to yourself.
Right. And as we were talking about transforming grief and fear into
Yeah.
love and grace, just briefly, we didn't really spend a whole lot of time with that, but we kind of did because we were
Yes, because it
talking
was all
about,
about love and grace
yeah.
from whatever you're coming from.
But
Yeah.
we have to let go of the old in order to have the new. I do
Have
a
to.
lot of dream work, and one of my dear friends is a really a phenomenal dream worker who's worked with some of the best people in the field. Um, and we always say death in dreams is always a good thing,
Mm,
because we get so scared. Again, literally,
mm.
we have a literal death in a dream that we take literal. When there's
Yes.
death, we wake up terribly frightened. But it's really a good thing, because what does it mean? It means that something in myself that isn't working and suiting and serving me anymore is dying off. So what
Yeah.
does this death in the dream represent? What am I letting go of in order for something else to be born? And that's what you were saying, is
Mm.
we're rebirthing ourselves. And again, just like the cycles of the moon,
Yeah.
can't have one without the
No.
other. You can't be birthing no babies if there haven't been some deaths going on. I mean, there's no, like my kids when they were little, why do we have to die? I'm like, there's not enough room on the planet. We
Right.
just
Yeah.
we've got to
And
continue
but
this
again,
cycle.
another total subject. What is death? It's an end of a vessel. But
Yeah,
the essence of you now, where does it go? It goes on. It becomes part of that energy platform for the next generations. And if we don't come back again, but that when we look at the planet again, winter it dies, and you think nothing will ever grow again. And
hmm
then come spring with a little rain, all of a sudden everything is in full bloom. Well, our vessel may die, but that doesn't mean that our seed doesn't regrow again in some form or other way.
I believe that. I used to make a joke when I went into parent ed that the reason I wanted to do this is because I believe in reincarnation, and
Hmm.
it's going to take several generations for parents to do this parenting thing better. So I
Yes.
want to come back then.
Yeah, and always come back. I mean, I don't mind coming back, but I don't want to come back to the last 2,000 years of struggle I've had. Thank you.
Right.
I'd like to
I,
come back into the state of being I am now and continue my work on that. And I do actually firmly believe that the energy that you pass over in is the energy that you will come back in.
right. I do too, and I feel like I don't know why we do it the way we do it here on this planet, but we do, and there's a lot of struggle, and I think we're struggling against the struggle and trying not to feel struggle. And as Carl Jung says, what we resist persist and often grows stronger. So kind of surrendering to this is life on planet Earth, and we have things like COVID, and we have
Yeah.
things like racism, And I don't understand it because,
I
again, like
don't.
we were talking earlier. Why can't we just? My son, when he was 8, he said, "Mom, you could never be president because you could never go to war because you're always saying be nice, get
Yes,
along."
yes. Whereas my 87-year-old that I live with here says, I don't understand it. I want to write to the news. Don't they know it's just a pigment of their skin? What's this big deal about what color they are? And she, as a nurse way back in the 40s, actually had somebody, instead of having a blood transfusion from a black man, died instead of doing that.
Oh, gosh.
So, it's like, I don't want black babies. And the thing is, we've got to understand that this ignorance has been passed down for centuries and is being conducted and manipulated. And the CNN effect, take a pimple, make it into a volcanic eruption. Fear keeps us in control.
Yeah,
And it makes
exactly.
us puppets for somebody else to pull the strings. So if you want free will and you want to make your own choices and you want to live your own life, be willing to cut those strings.
Absolutely. More love rather than fear is definitely what we need on our planet.
Yeah, love will make the world go round.
But it's challenging because we're in a lot of fear. Let's face it.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of people
But
that
then
are
isn't
scared.
this an opportunity to be loving towards one another?
Mhm.
Right? And if
Absolutely.
you've got somebody that's in fear, isn't some of your loving kindness going to be something that you can blanket with them to take away that fear? So shouldn't we use love as the instrument at the present moment to help us combat the fear?
Yeah, it sounds easy, but what people do is they go into a nervous system fear response
Yeah.
and they react in certain ways, trying to feel safe, and it's unconscious. The frontal lobe's offline. So again, that's why present moment is so important, coming back into
Yeah.
present moment safety and learning these things that we've been talking about today so we can realize that, there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger way of being other than in fear. But when we're
Yeah.
in fear, we can't get our frontal lobe online,
I know.
be rational
Well, I
enough
mean,
to
fear
figure
is crippling.
yeah.
Fear is laying yourself open to victimization,
Hmm.
because the decisions that we make while we're in fear will never ever benefit you. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about, you're walking into a forest in the middle of the night with the wolves. So, that's a common sense fear. All right. But I'm talking about this fear of, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I don't know this and I don't know that. Well, step into wonderment instead of, I don't know, fear.
So I totally forgot because in my first book I have this exercise at the end of each chapter based on the themes, and I ask, are you doing these things out of love or are you doing them out of fear?
Mm,
So there's these reflective exercises about each of the themes that came up in my book because it's hard to sort it out because we
yeah.
like if I'm pushing my child to do well in school, to go to an Ivy League school because I think that's going to make me a better parent, is that love or is that fear?
And where is that fear coming from? Is it the expectation that that child is only going to get ahead in life with an Ivy League, is only going to be important with that status, is only going to be loved if they achieve that?
Right.
Because now what are we saying to the child? Unless you reach that Ivy League and become someone important, you're unlovable.
Mhm. And then it goes back to me as a mom.
Yeah,
How does that reflect upon me? I'm a good mom if my child ends up in the Ivy League
right.
school. I have this expectation that this means I'm a good mom and that means my kid did well. That's all fear.
Yes.
So love is again letting go and allowing and seeing. I have to share my favorite quote with you by Catherine Kersey, the woman I studied early childhood with, which was she's an amazing teacher. She says children come into the world very much like a packet of seeds with no cover on the front, and it's our job very much like the gardener to provide the adequate water, air, nutrition, and light to raise that seed to its highest potential. It's not our job to raise a rose into a carnation or a carnation into a rose. And I think parents are so afraid all the time of making sure their kids are okay, making sure they're good parents, that they can't sit back and say, oh, be curious. What
Yeah.
is the seed that has no cover on the front?
Hmm.
The curiosity of allowing and seeing our children grow. All my children, I have four, they have looks on their faces now that I saw the minute they were born.
Right.
They have that essence. You say soul,
Yeah.
and I believe in that, and I believe, essence is another word I use, that it's
Mm.
like there's something that they come into the world with that's very unique, and it's my job as a parent to allow them to, as you were saying, the orchestra
Yeah.
idea, to really find out what is their symphony, what
Yeah.
role are they playing, what is their instrument, and when we're not in fear, back to the nothingness, that happens. But it's
We
just,
allow. We
there's no,
allow, we don't dictate.
there's
We
not
explore them. I think if you could look at your child and go into wonderment with your child, you will learn to see things differently, and it will reset the child within you. And it would also teach you more appreciation and gratitude, and also teach you more what is important. Our children are here to teach us right now.
another one of my favorite quotes, Jordan and Margaret Paul, children are divine teachers. When we fail
Mm,
to see their light, it is our vision that needs clearing.
yeah.
I learned more from my four children than any of my
Yeah.
three degrees,
Yes.
anything else in life. They've taught me everything.
Yeah.
And we have to be willing to see that they can teach us,
Yes.
and that the old school telling them what to do and be for our own needs and out of our own fear really isn't serving anyone well.
Yeah. I think that's why, as a parent, I had a lot of conflict with other parents, because I was, all about, yeah, I mean, don't slack off and don't, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
That was a different thing. But if you're in discovery of self, and math isn't it,
Yeah.
or this isn't it, what is? What's your instrument? Let's explore. And they pick up something and they think that's their instrument, and then from there, no, this, I like this, but it's not my instrument. I'm still exploring. And this thing about make up your mind, stick to one thing. Balderdash. I've never been able to stick to one thing except for these radio shows now for the last 8 years. It has our parenting. I'm most certainly stuck to that. But it's all about, well, where is the wind taking me now? What do I need to know? And sometimes some people need to know all of the instruments because they're going to be a future conductor.
Hmm. Well, and I love Michelle Obama's title for her book, Becoming, and that's why she
Yes.
titled it Becoming, because she said, we're always still becoming.
Yeah.
And like you said, change. We do. We want to. We don't
Yes.
want to stay stagnant and
Oh,
stuck in something that, isn't working for us. But that doesn't mean where we are right now isn't okay. It just simply means we're always becoming.
yeah.
There's always more, if we're open and willing.
Open and willing to
Mhm.
let go of the reins, to let go of the control, and go with the flow, and reach out to the people that we have a synergy with, that have skills and tools to help us and show us how to use them on our own journey of life. And that's all you're there for. You're not there to fix someone. You're there to help somebody, not even fix themselves, but redirect themselves to a place of beingness that is more beneficial for them and makes them a better human being as contributors on the planet.
Yep, absolutely. I think we all have to do the work ourselves, but we don't have to do it alone. And I
No,
think that's the key. People are looking outside for somebody to do it for
no.
them. And then they think, well, I can't do it by myself. Well, the people out there, the best people, I feel, are guides. They're
Yeah.
not gurus. I mean,
Yes.
I live in a Boulder, Colorado, where there's a lot of gurus, people out there who say they are enlightened and they can
Yeah.
give
The
you the
prophet, the
golden nugget.
guru, the shaman. Yes, exactly. It's yeah.
We need a guide. We don't need
Yeah.
a guru. We
Yep.
need somebody to give us some guidance to find the answers in here, because they're
Right.
all in us all along.
Yeah. Somebody to guide us, somebody maybe even to teach us how to use the instrument. But it's all about teaching the person how to use it in their own light, not in theirs. And I think that's, as teachers, that we need to understand if we're stepping into a teacher or a guiding role. It's not like, do it my way, it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's that these are the tools that worked for me. This is how I use them. You use them in the way that works for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I learned that in my early childhood studies on individualized instruction, which, again, we still don't do that so well in schools these days. We
No.
have a long way to go. But yes,
Yeah.
I
I
agree
mean,
with
school and I never mixed. Never
that.
mixed at all. I actually, because I'm a knowingness person, I got exempted from a few classes when I went to live in South Africa because of the language. And I would be with the music teacher, the art teacher, and I'd end up counseling them. And there was, I'm going to counsel you today. No, it's just that where they were at, I felt the energy and I seemed to have the answer that they needed at the time. I didn't understand what the answer was. I was just channeling it and allowing it to happen. And they realized Sara's a different person. And you can't teach her in the way that we can teach others, because she has to learn in a different way. And for me, I've learned through life, through experience life, through living life, through being a part of life, good and bad, whatever cosmic roller coaster we've been on.
And don't you think it's about inner trust? I mean, I think
Yes.
that's the part that we
The
lose.
hardest, I think, the hardest,
Yeah.
to trust yourself.
Yeah, and your name, there's rumor has it that Mary Magdalene's daughter, Mary and Jesus had a daughter named Sarah. I don't know if you know that or not.
Well,
But
I know that the Arabic spelling is without the H and the Israeli spelling is with the H, and it both mean princess. So,
it's a beautiful name. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
and I always say I'd far rather be the princess than the queen. We have more fun.
I like it. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. I just love it. Like, we take a title and it really kind of went with everything that we spoke about, but we just allowed to come out today what needed to come out.
Yeah.
And, that's part of it too, is not dictating, it's guiding, but it's not dictating. It's that this is what we needed to share today for those that are ready. And it's, whether you're stepping into the motherhood with your children or the mother of yourself, or Mother Earth, it is about letting go of the fear and stepping into self-love to be a part of that love that is going to be the solution in the world. So thank you for sharing today. It's been a wonderful journey.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed our conversations. It was lovely.
Great. PattiAshley.com. You'll find everything there, all of her books. Just step out, dive in, and what speaks to you. Is it the book? Is it the conversation you can have with her? Is it some of the videos she's got? But you see, nobody can help you until you're willing to help yourself. So be willing to step up and be interactive in your own life, because then now you'll truly understand the benefit of this wonderful guidance. Thank you, Patti.
Thank you, Sara.
Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening.